Back in 1962, Agri Supplies started with a simple creed: provide good, solid products at a fair price. Add in stellar customer service and you have the best option. There's 9 locations across North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia, and their robust online ordering makes it easy for anyone in the world to experience the Agri way. Don't hesitate. Go to agrisupply.com to find just the product you're looking for. The Carolina All Out Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast is brought to you by Carolina All Out Apparel. Shop at our online stores for hats, shirts, koozies, and much more. Carolina All Out Apparel. Express the lifestyle you live.
It's the Carolina All Out Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast with Chris Douglas, where the conversation covers all things in the NC outdoors pertaining to hunting and fishing. Like and subscribe to get all the hunting and fishing info from the top guides, locals, and conservation agencies. Hear from biologists and professionals in the field about what things matter to you most. From the studios in Lemon Springs, North Carolina, your host, Chris Douglas.
And welcome back. We are here with the Carolina All Out Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Douglas, and I've got my best bud in the studio with us today, Mr. Kenneth Chesson, who we affectionately call KC, and that has nothing to do with the Sunshine Band, although we'll make a reference to that every now and then. Yeah. And we've been talking about KC and what he has done and accomplished in his career, and how much of a good friend and basically an uncle to my kids, and a dear friend to my wife. It's been we've just had a family. We've been the brother that neither one of us ever had.
And your wife is the sister I've never had. It's just a tight-knit family group. My kids call you Uncle Chris and Aunt G. So it is, we've been on family trips over the years, so truly are, y'all are a family.
There's no doubt we're a family there. And Casey has played such an integral role with Carolina All Out, and that's one of the main reasons on there, outside of the fact that the cat is interesting and all the stuff that he's done in his life and career. But we have had a number of incidences that we can talk about over the years in our travels, because if you travel, there is no cookie cutter way of doing it. I mean, yes, we travel to the airport, we get on the shuttle buses, we get into the airport, we check in. All that's the same. Even then, some things can go wrong there. But we, where your destinations are and what happens in between, this space and that space, or this time zone and that time zone becomes it's anybody's game there. When Casey and I were kind of coming up with what we were going to talk about, I said to him, well, let's talk about some funny stories that we have had happen to us, either together or individually. And I've got to tell this one because it was like an introduction to he and I. From time to time, Casey and I get introduced or get asked to come in and be guest speakers for an event, whether it's a club event or usually not a huge amount of people, but it's a goodly amount of people in wherever we are. And we love doing those, whether it's a club, end of year, trophies, awards kind of thing, or if it's a beast feast or, at a church or anything else like that. So, and we're always grateful to do those. But we had one incident. Now we're gonna kind of keep the names, even if I could remember the name, but I'm not even going to say where it was. We had a gentleman who was the president at the time of this club, and they asked us to come in and be a part of the awards ceremony. Now we had our sons with us too,
Colby and Hayden.
Sitting
front and center.
And Colby was maybe how old at that point?
He was 9. He was young.
Right.
Still had the chicklets going on.
Yep, had the big chicklets going on. And KC was a couple of years older. I don't know, was maybe 3 years older, 4 years older, maybe.
Who are you talking about, Casey? Hayden.
Oh, I said Casey. Sorry.
Hayden.
Hayden was.
Yeah, Hayden is 3 years older.
3 years older. So you can imagine these two kids sitting on the front there. And so when we were in the back, kind of getting prepared, and the guy wanted to talk to us because he was going to give an introduction. He said, "Okay, give us an introduction here." Now, we've already told you that we met in the chat room. Okay, that's the first one.
And we've been on many adventures together.
Which you guys have heard all about that. And so this guy's like, okay, yeah, we've traveled together. And he goes, okay, you traveled together, and he's writing all this stuff. He seemed really nervous at that time.
Oh yeah.
And so we got all that information out to him, and we're thinking about what we're going to say and what maybe some things we're going to do. And of course, we always want to give a word of encouragement to everyone that they're listening to us and that sort of stuff. So we have this all kind of set up in our minds. This guy comes out and he goes, "Okay, everybody, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kenneth Chesson and Chris Douglas."
And he was shaking like a leaf.
He really was. I mean, he was really nervous, and he said, he says they met in an internet chat room.
Strike one.
And so our kids have perked up there. And when he said it out loud, it was like, okay, that doesn't sound too good.
That did not sound right. And Kobe and Hayden, they look at each other and they look at us, and their eyes are real big.
Because they're not far away. They're just right there. And so I'm standing with my arms crossed, and I'm like nodding my head. So we met in an internet chat room, because they met in an internet chat room and have been lifelong partners ever since, and have been on many adventures together.
And I hear my son in the front, and he's looking at Hayden, and they're both giggling. It's like, oh, boy.
We knew that they were picking up what this guy was saying, and this guy was totally 100% honest, and there was no animosity there at all. He was just, but the way it came off sounded a little interesting to me, and I think it might have sounded interesting to some other people. So I think we spent the first little portion making sure we were clarified that we were married, and we
the first words out of Chris's mouth were, "Oh yeah, I'm happily married, and there's my son Hayden right there. I got a beautiful wife Janelle back at home." And I said, "Yep, there's my son Colby, happily married."
Yeah, we had to make sure we got that straight real quick there of that sort of thing. But we've laughed about that a number of times there.
Oh boy.
Where we met there. But there's a lot of other stories that have gone on. I was pitched these out to KC, and he can give us a let's see here. What do we have one? I don't want to jump too far ahead of anything like some of the earlier times. Well, let's just talk about yard dart.
Yard dart. Yard dart. I'd been on a caribou hunt up in Prudhoe Bay. Mm-hmm. So we get flown in on a float plane, land at a little lake. You rent tents, stick them out. 2 days before we got there, in the area they were dropping us off, grizzly bear had killed a fella. Mm-hmm. They did not find the grizzly bear, but here I am. I have a tent all to myself. I have video camera and equipment, no weapons, and we've got 3 tents set up. The other guys, they have weapons. I don't. Okay.
You're on North Slope? Where are you at?
We're out there in the North Slope.
North Slope, okay.
Yep. And it's followed a year. That hunt was pretty. It didn't start out good. First night, it was raining. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of vegetation. Everything small blueberry bushes, tundra type. Sleeping bag got wet, stayed wet for 10 days, slept wet. I just, usually on a hunt, you want to come back and look forward to that nice warm meal and a nice warm sleep and get up and do it all over again. I stayed wet for 10 days, miserable. Got our caribou. Mm-hmm.
That was with Gus Conjimmy.
Gus Conjimmy,
yeah,
yep.
Live the wildlife.
Live the wildlife.
That was where the term "chow's so cold."
Oh, every morning I'd wake up and I'd be going, "Chow's so cold, chow's so cold."
Because at that time, that was when the Hangover movie was so popular, and that was what we said all the time. Whenever
Douglas KC was freezing his toes off. It was one of them hunts that I actually look forward to getting out of the sleeping bag and going and walking and just warming up. It was miserable.
When you get in a wet season, there's nothing more miserable.
I can't stand it, but anyhow, you do it. And we got a nice caribou, got nice meat. We cut everything up. Then time comes, float plane comes back in. You schedule everything, and that was back in times. I think we had a satellite phone. Cell phones weren't a thing back then.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Really weren't. Plane comes back in, and what should have been 3 trips out, he decides he's going to make it 2 trips out. So we have stuff stacked on the skis. We have stuff, we have antlers tied off underneath the wings.
Right.
And he takes the first group out, and he comes back and he comes back and gets me, cameraman, first in, last out.
Yeah.
Well, we're sitting there and load everything up, and he says, get up in the front and, get in the seat and you're up here. Well, he cranks the engine up, everything's loaded up, and we start doing circles around the lake. Well, on the opposite side of the lake, there's about a 10-foot ledge, and then on top of the ledge is about 2.5, 3 foot tall blueberry bushes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we get to whipping, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm gaining speed." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he gets all the way, he does about 4 or 5 laps and gets all the way to the end of the pond, and he starts beaming forward, and I see him, he's just pumping his hands and his legs, and he's grabbing controls, and he says, "Grab the stick." And I'm like, "Grab the stick?" He's like, "Yeah, grab the stick." And he's sitting there, and he's just pulling, and I can see him struggling, and I'm grabbing that thing, and I'm pulling back. I'm like, oh my God. I started looking at him with that, that ledge is getting closer and closer, and them skis are still on the water going. And I look over at him, I was like, "We ain't gonna make it." He's like, "I think we're going to make it." No, we go a few more feet, and I was like, "We are not going to make it." And he's like, "I think we'll be all right." And all of a sudden, I see them skis lift a little bit. Well, long story short, we get going and start going up, and we go over the ledge. Those skis are hitting the bushes. We barely get over. I mean, so it was a 40-minute flight to, civilization. There's no way we could have walked out, and if we'd have crashed, they would have figured it out because they were expecting him back within a couple hours. So, who knows what would have happened. But long story short, we land back where the other guys were, and we pull up to that dock, and I get out, and the pilot's got some guys there helping him. They work with him, help get everything offloaded and packed. And I get out. I'm the first one to pop out at the dock. And I look at that guy, and I was like, I am never getting on another plane with that guy in my life. And he started chuckling and look at me. He's like, "You don't know what his nickname is, do you?" And I looked at him. I was like, "Nickname?" He's like, "Yeah, his nickname's Yard Dart." I was like, "Yard Dart? What? Yard Dart?" He's like, "Yeah, that rascal's crashed 19 times. And I was like, "And he's lived to tell about it?" He's like, "Oh, yeah." I was like, "Well, he's going to get it right one day." And we just about did it back there. It was, yeah.
What do they say in Alaska? There are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots.
Well, he wasn't that old. He was just, I wouldn't even call him bold, Douglas. That was just.
It was stupid.
Yeah, it was stupid. But you talking about a pucker factor. It's we going up there, and I'm like, oh my God. And, kind of sticking with the Alaska theme, my first trip to Alaska, we went hunting with Pioneer Outfitters.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Terry Overley.
That's Terry Overley.
Oh, yeah. We were out there on the spring bear hunt, and I'd never been on a bush plane before in my life. And we're going to ride horses, and we're going to go, try to get a spring grizzly. Mm-hmm. Well, Terry's got this Piper Cub. He's pulled all the metal off of it, and everything's taped up and all just for weight, so he could put more weight on the plane. And I'm kind of being clueless. He's like, "Okay, let's go flying. I'll show you the area, and you can get some footage from the sky." I was like, "Okay, all right, I don't have a problem with that." Well, we get to flying through the Wrangell Mountain Range, and we're flying in the valleys and all, and there's streams below us. And I had this back in the day, is the DV cams, the big old DV cam, and I had it up on my shoulder because it's a 2-seater, and I'm sitting right behind the pilot. Well, he looks back and sees me with the camera up. He's like, "You filming?" I was like, I got headphones on. I can hear him. I was like, "Yeah, I'm getting some footage as we go." All of a sudden, he reaches out there and cuts the engine off. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "Well, it'll smooth it out so you can get good footage. It won't be bumpy." And I put the camera down. And I was like, "No, I'm good. You can start that thing back up anytime." Well, okay, so he's doing a scouting trip on top of that. And we get going down, and we go down, we're 100 foot off the deck, and he pulls up, and he's just going down, and he's pulling back up. And I asked him, I was like, "What are you looking for?" He's like, "A runway." And I get a look around, I was like, I don't see a runway around here. He's like, "No, I'm looking for a place to land." I had not a clue I mean, it just went over my head. I'd always heard about bush pilots, but now that I was in that environment, he was looking for a place on the creek bed to land that plane. And long story short, we set that plane down in very short order. And when it come time to get it up and off the ground, I mean, he basically took off in a matter of feet. It's amazing.
Those stole systems.
It's amazing those guys how they maneuver. But that was an eye-opening experience.
No doubt, yeah. Well, both Terry, I don't know if Terry's even alive anymore.
I think he is,
still alive?
but that plane you can actually get on YouTube and see that black Piper Cub, but he lost it in a fire.
Oh,
yeah, that was an iconic. Terry's the man in black. And he is.
We did a hunt with Stryker, his son, out on the North Slope.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and he was quite a pilot too, you know.
Yeah,
but there's so many pilots out there.
Man.
I mean, everybody's a pilot. Just I won't say everyone.
Yeah.
But if you lived in the backcountry, you should know how to fly a plane, just because it's the only way you're gonna get anything.
Yeah.
You know, any provisions back into camp there.
Well, one more story about Overly. You know, he's got a compound, I call it, in a bunch of places, and we'd been out. You know, didn't get a grizz and stayed out a week longer than we were supposed to. And I wrote a phone number down. I was like, look, man, you better call this number, call my wife and let her know we're not coming home when we're supposed to, or she'll send out the National Guard looking for us. So he did that. And we finally got back into, I had a little cabin by myself, and that was my first earthquake experience. I was laying in bed, and it was during spring, so it wouldn't get dark. But I woke up. It was the day before we were going to fly out and go home, and I remember I woke up and I was rocking back and forth in bed, and I'm like, what in the world? But it was an earthquake. And that was my first earthquake. It was weird.
Yeah, that's
weird.
Earthquake. Yeah, if you've never experienced an earthquake before, it is a very surreal experience.
Yeah,
sometimes depending on the size of it, you don't know if did I just actually experience that or not.
Well, this one lasted for a while and rolling back and forth, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on, but just weird.
Amazing that much of the earth moves like it does there. Well, let's talk about again. We're gonna keep some of these stories, to protect the identity of some of the innocent there. You had an experience in Illinois one time with a hunter.
Oh yeah. Well, we were out hunting whitetail. It was November peak. That's when everybody goes to Illinois to hunt.
Rut's on.
Rut is on, and he's got the stand set up, and it's his property that he hunts, and we go. I climb as a camera guy. I always climb up first, pull my camera up, put everything. I got to put a tree arm on, put the camera on, and he comes up behind me, and I got my stuff ready. I'm just sitting there, and he pulls up, and he's fumbling around and all, and he's got his bow. He's pulling his bow up, and all of a sudden he hadn't latched his release like he should, and the release drops and hits the ground. And for some odd reason, it did not sit well with him, and it kind of upset him. And he looks up at me, and I was like, "Oh, what is about to happen?" And he pulls his bow up, and he slings it towards the ground. I guess he thought the bow was still hooked on the pull rope and would be okay. That bow hit the ground and shattered. I mean, it just the string come off and it popped. And boy, he went from zero to really pissed then. And it was he says a few choice words, and he looks at me. He's like, "I'll be back in a few minutes." Well, we had to walk through a couple of 100 yards through a cornfield that had not been picked yet. And I'm sitting there, and we're on the edge of the cornfield, up in the woods a little bit. And I hear him. He's not happy, and he's walking through that cornfield. And I mean, I can hear every step because he is not trying to be quiet at all. And I look, and here comes this buck. And he's walking through, and he's not even paying that cornfield any mind. And he stops underneath. We're set up in a acorn grove, and oak grove, and he's eating some acorns. And as I turn the camera on and start filming, and this big buck's sitting there, I was like, I cannot believe this is actually happening. And that deer we were after was underneath eating. And he stays there a few minutes, and he eases on, and then I hear the guy coming back. He crawls up. I wait for him to get strapped in the tree.
Yeah.
I wait for him to get
So he doesn't try to
everything
jump
up.
out.
And I lean over and said, "Hey, we might as well go home." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "You know that buck we were after?" "Yeah." "Well, he was down here eating acorns while you were walking through the corn patch to your truck, and you getting all that stuff." I was like, "He's down here eating." I was like, "He's already gone." He's like, "You're kidding me." I was like, "Absolutely not." He's like, "I don't believe you." So I modern cameras, you got these they started putting little screens on them. I rewound the footage and put it on, and I started showing him, and his face turned bright red, and his jaws tightened up, and he got so mad he couldn't even say a choice word. He started shaking his head, and he looked at me. He's like, "Well, what do you think?" I was like, "Well, we don't have anything better to do. We might as well sit here. No telling what else would come through." But we didn't see another deer that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but that was just like, you couldn't believe what was going on. You had to be there.
You've got to be there. There's a lot of pressure out there for those guys. I know. I mean, I'm there now, and I know Josh has got probably we could do a whole podcast of Josh laughing at the things that I've said or I've done or I don't think I've ever thrown a bow out of the tree. I'm pretty level-headed about that, but pretty hilarious there to know that all that went down, and that'd make you want to give up real quick.
Yeah.
There. You spent quite a couple weeks or more.
It's been a month.
Up there.
Yeah,
right through that whole rut time there. You're listening to the Carolina All Out Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast. We'll be right back.
You are in too deep with nowhere else to go.
Keeping up with Carolina All Out is easy. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Like and follow to keep up with the All Out crew and our friends with posts, stories, and reels that will inspire you to get outdoors. There's some things in life that just makes you feel good when you see it. And something cooking in an old black cast iron skillet does it for me. There's nothing like it. And if it does it for you, then my friends over at Carolina Cooker have just the equipment you need for outdoor cooking, camping, kitchen accessories, and food processing. Check out carolinacooker.com to order from their huge selection and also find a store near you that carries the brand born in the Carolinas. Carolina Cooker, tools, cooks, legends, you create the tradition. We're in the airports all the time. Now, Casey loves to travel with me because it seems like I got all sorts of little things that happen.
Never a dull moment when Douglas is in the house.
Yeah. So I've had quite a few experiences in the airport. And probably one of the last times we traveled together, this is just, wow, gosh, I could go on and on about these things. But so we stopped at food court. We're in Atlanta. Anybody traveled through that airport? I forget what terminal we're in. All of them have food court.
I think it's B terminal because every time I go through there, I take a picture and text you.
That's right. Yeah. So B terminal. We're in B terminal. We'll just call it B terminal. We're in B terminal. I don't remember what we ate. We might have had Panda Express. I don't remember what we ate. But there's high top tables everywhere and high top bars, and the chairs that they have there are really tall.
But they're light.
They're light.
And
yeah.
they're
made out of aluminum, hollow aluminum piping, and they're tall. So you sit down, you hang your backpack on the back of it, and we got old Zeke coming to the door.
Seeker.
Hello, Zeke.
Hey, buddy.
All right. Crazy.
Oh, Seeker.
So anyway, we just got a visit from Zeke there. So anyway, they're light and they're hollow, and we ate. And I just remember there was a girls volleyball team. I was like, man, well, it's a college age volleyball team came in, had USA. It might have been some Olympic.
It may have been. As a matter of fact, they were wearing red and blue. So
yeah. And they had, we know that it's volleyball because they had the volleyball symbols on their shirts and everything like that, on their jackets and everything. And so, obviously, post 9/11 and all the stories that have come about, people a little bit nervous. I'll give them that. And it's an old hat for us. So anyway, we get finished up. We're getting ready to leave. And I go to grab my backpack. At that point, I think it's off of the chair, but it obviously
it caught between your backpack and your back.
Right.
And you started walking away.
So as I'm walking away, you can imagine this is like a 4.5 foot tall chair. The back is up here close
Oh,
to
yeah,
my shoulder.
yeah, 'cause you
gotta
had to
climb
step up on it.
Got to climb up on it. So when that thing, and these girls are walking toward us, and so I just basically pulled the chair down, and when that chair fell and I never saw it coming.
You did not pull the chair, Douglas. It fell. It had force.
And it fell, and it was so loud. It spooked me. I didn't know.
Like
I
a
just
bomb
froze.
going off.
It did. It sounded like a gunshot went off. And this girl was in front of me. You know, these girls are athletic. She did this maneuver in front of me and got down like a cat on the ground so fast. And I mean, heads turned, all eyes on Chris, you know, and I could just feel that there goes the blood pressure again. I could
But
just
you
feel
didn't
it.
realize you had done it to start.
I know.
with.
I was like, what happened? You know, and I turn around and look, and this chair is like on the thing, but it didn't make this bang-a-lang. It said boom.
Oh,
And I mean,
earth-shattering
these
boom.
people went to the floor. There were people getting down around. I could see
It was
people hiding
radio
behind.
silence in there.
It was. I didn't think the guy that plays the piano in there would stop.
He stopped. Everybody stopped.
Everybody stopped because it was like boom. I was like, oh my gosh. You know, of course, everybody's looking at me, and I can feel this pressure. So I'm like, I was like, here we go. There it is again. And you know, my buddy OKC, the guy I've talked so highly of, is just like he's doing right now. He's laughing, but he's not laughing subdued. He's like letting it rip, like ha ha ha.
The look on them girls' faces, they're about prone on the ground, and that
I
girl's
mean, one
that
was
girl's
down
in
crap.
crotch.
She was like, I couldn't even make that move. I'd never. She got down so fast. I was like, you know, I don't know what, you know. So
But once they realized what happened, they started laughing, and it was.
yeah, it was okay. But I was like ready to get out of there. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to my gate.
I'm
And I
sure a
didn't
few folks had to clean some pants out after that one because that one was rough.
because you know you're thinking in the airport. You know, people think the worst. Something like that goes off that loud. So yeah, we've had. Oh my gosh, man. There's been.
Well, Douglas, tell us about your little TSA experience with your belt.
Oh yeah, I don't recall what hunt that was, but we were at LAX. We were in Los Angeles airport, and I don't think we were going international. I think we were actually coming in there to go domestic somewhere or another on the West Coast because that happens. You know, that's some of the. Or it could have been Mexico too. We
I think you're coming out of Mexico.
It was Mexico maybe.
Yeah, one of the sheep hunts.
Yeah, I think so. I believe you're right. So anyway, if you've done any traveling, you know TSA and you know how that gets all jammed up and there's hundreds of people in an airport like that. The lines are ridiculous. And, you know, it's just turnstiles. You're just cattle going back and forth, zigzagging there. And I get, I don't know, halfway down and I hear this booming voice. This guy is like, remove all hats, all shirts, or all jackets. He says all jackets, your shoes, computers in a, you know.
Belts.
He's got this bellowing voice, you know. And you know, and he's very commanding. And so, you know, I'm kind of getting a little bit anxiety there because, you know, I'm watching these people and he's not cutting anybody any slack, you know, and there's foreign people there that don't understand what's going on. You know, I mean, they're trying to understand, but this guy's, you know, he's speaking English and that's all he's going to speak. And so everybody's watching the next group in front of them. So I'm coming down the line, I'm getting closer. This dude's getting louder. I'm getting more anxious, you know, and, I'm concerned, you know. I don't know why. I mean, you know, I know this deal. I've done this traveling thing for 20 years, you know, or 15 years at least at that point. And I'm like, come on, you know, you're not worried about this. So anyway, he's like, remove all shirts, all shirts, all jacket, or not, you know, not shirts, but remove jackets, remove your boots, remove your whatever, all belts. And he says things about belts too. And I've got this, you know, leather belt that I've worn forever. And it's a heavy belt, but it's like so worn that it's like just a loose cloth almost. It's just that loose. So my turn comes up there, and this lady's in front of me, and she's trying to do what this guy is saying, and so am I. And so I've already kind of got it in my mind what I'm going to do here. You know, I'm going to be efficient with this thing, you know, and I'd already gone through the whole thing, heads, shoulders, knees, and toes. You know, I'm doing this sort of thing. And so, man, I'm kicking them shoes off. And I grab this belt a little overzealous, and I just rip it out. You know, I just rip the belt right out to my left there. Well, this lady is bending over right in front of me trying to get her shoes off. And so this belt, this heavy leather belt that's as loose as cloth, it just kind of goes, it doesn't go horizontally across her rear end. It kind of goes between her legs and up through, and instantly, because I'm looking at the dude because he's telling me, and I just off to the side, but it makes this snap, and then I hear, woo, like this. And she stands straight up, and I knew what I'd done, and I wasn't about to look at it. And I could just feel the heat as she just turned around and just gave me, out of the corner of my eye, my peripheral vision was pretty good, and I could just see she was standing with one hand on her hip like,
did you really
did you just do this? And I've just never even looked. I started hopping on one foot, getting my shoe off. I wasn't even going to pay attention to that over there because I knew if I ever gave her a moment, I was getting ready to get it, And it was just like, so, now this guy's barking orders still. And so, she has to quickly get everything. And I'm like, she's going on. I avoided that lady like the plague. I was not going to let her come back and get me later on over there. But it was a snap. I mean, it didn't break the sound barrier, but it was, when it came out of my loops, it was like, like that. And I that woman's probably told that story herself over the years. I don't know if she has or not. I don't know if she even wants to remember it, but I'm telling you what, it was an embarrassing situation for me, and I was so ready to get away from that place there. But anyway.
Well, Douglas, you got at least two more I want to hear about.
Okay. All right. Which one?
Let's start with the one that you had fell asleep at the gate.
St. Louis Airport. I don't know if you've ever flown through that one there. We've been through a lot of airports.
Yeah.
You can start naming the airports we've
yeah.
been through. Turkey hunting in Pike County, Illinois. We're turkey hunting by day, catching morel. I mean, not catching, but finding morels, eating morels and steak at night, and staying up late and hanging out with all the guys in camp. And it's been a long, it was a 3-day hunt. It was all it was, but we never slept.
Right.
And so I was just exhausted, and I was so ready to get home, and I had to drive in. I think, I don't know, was that like 2.5, 3 hours or so?
2.5. Yeah,
2.5 hours from Pike County down to St. Louis. And so, I was up early. I had an early morning flight, so that put me like maybe getting out of there at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So I was just exhausted by the time I got to the airport. And I remember I had a camera. No, actually, I'd checked the camera underneath. That's right. We checked the camera underneath. But I did have a kind of a briefcase, I don't know what, I can't even explain. I don't even know if I could find that thing anymore. I've got it in there. Well, I used it for travel quite a bit there. But I had a bunch of papers for some reason because I was doing some real estate stuff at the time and all that. And so anyway, I got between these two. The gate was full of people. And so there was like one seat to sit in. So I just got in between these two big dudes sitting on each side of me. And they were like, coming over into the seat. So I was like, pretty much compressed in there. But being I was in between those guys, I got my head back. I got in a comfortable position, and I was out like a light. Don't remember anything. I just woke. And so anyway, I wake up, and the whole gate is clear. There's not a soul in there. And you're talking about panic now, because I was ready to get home, and I was not about to miss a flight, and that was not what I was going to do, because I had to fly from St. Louis down to Atlanta and Atlanta up to Raleigh. And I was like, just immediate panic, because you're waking up, you're disoriented, you don't know where you are, and then here you are by yourself. And you look up, and the lady's standing, the door's still open going down the jetway. And I'm thinking, okay, there's still time. I get that. So I get up and I say something like, wait, kind of blurt it out, almost scare myself when I say it. And so I don't think it was like that pressing that they were going to leave me. They obviously were going to see me sitting at the gate, and they were going to come over and wake me up. Right. I just was in a panic at that point. So I jump up, unbeknownst to me that I had crossed my legs because I was sitting between those two dudes and there was no place to put anything. So I crossed my legs, and my left leg had just gone to sleep. It was out. And I'm not talking about, it was not just asleep. It was dead. There was no feeling in it whatsoever. And I didn't even know it. And so when I stood up,
I took maybe one step and that leg gave out on me and I went down, and it was terrifying. I was literally terrified. It's like, oh, something's wrong, you know. And I'm yelling, wait, and I'm on the ground, and I got papers that have spread out, fallen all over the ground. So now I'm scrambling around with this dead leg, and I'm trying to pull papers back in, and I'm not caring at that point. I'm just stuffing them any way I can in the thing, and I'm like, and I'm still yelling, wait. And they're like, come on. And I just, you know, no matter what she said to me, like, don't worry, just, you know, even if she'd said, you got plenty of time, honey, don't worry about it. Oh, no. I was petrified for whatever reason. So I rushed past her. You know, I'm dragging this leg behind me now. You know, literally going flop, flop, flop. And I'm trying to get, you know, move as fast as I can. And so now this jetway, it's a small plane. It's not a big plane. So the jetway, you know how it goes when a small plane's down. Those jetways are so high that it's just like a ramp. I mean, it's very steep. I don't know what the pitch is, but it's very steep. And so now I'm going down this thing, flop, flop, dragging this leg, and now the leg is starting to get out ahead of me because of the gravity. So now I'm chasing my dead leg, and I fall and roll at least once down, and the papers go everywhere again on the jetway. Now I'm absolutely in a tizzy now. I just like I can't hold it together. I'm almost going to cry. Oh, God. And so now I'm trying to get papers up and trying to drag this leg and trying not to look like something's wrong with me. You know, I'm just embarrassed. There's every negative emotion that you could have is going on right now with me in this jetway by myself. Of course, now there's somebody down there that can see me. They've seen somebody fall in a jetway. So now you've got, you know, it's one attendant there, and they're looking up the hill up there, like, what's going on up there?
One of those.
And I'm yelling again, wait. Like they're going to leave me. And I don't know why I'm saying wait, because they're not going to leave me, but I don't register. So, you know, because I know that I'm just causing. So anyway, I get all my papers together, and I get up against the jetway there, against the wall, and I'm going down the hill, and I'm maintaining. And so I get there, and I go, you know, thank you for waiting and everything. And I said, sure thing, you know, and that sort of stuff. So then I look, and the whole plane I guess they could hear me yelling, wait, down that jetway, and the whole plane is looking at me. And my seat is at the back, of course. I got to go by everybody. And everybody is looking at me like a bit of a horrified, just, you know, it's like, what's wrong with this dude? And I got papers hanging out, and I'm, you know, telling everybody, yeah, how y'all doing? How you doing? And I'm coming by. I'm just so glad I got on the plane because I knew I was going home. I got in my seat, and I sit down, and then I got to remember I got to put my, you know, and I'm seeing the mess that I'm in, and I get the bag back overhead. There's a little space I can get in their head, and I sit down, and I was like, okay, I'm here, and I'm working on a seatbelt. And about probably 2 or 3 minutes later, I just happen to feel, now I'm starting to be aware, and I feel this, like, I don't know, it's wet on my chest there. And I had slobbered a big old slobber spot on my shirt where I had fallen forward. So now, you know, and I went to the bathroom when we got up in the hair. My hair was standing straight up. I mean, I looked like hell, if I can say that word on a podcast. I looked like, and I had this big slobber spot on me. And then I had, you know, you can only imagine, you're dragging your foot, you know, flop through the aisles. You got all these papers everywhere. Your hair's standing straight up. You got slobber all over yourself. And it was just a mess. It was just a mess, but I made it home safely, and I'm glad to say it. And that whole thing is over with, but I have laughed several times at myself over that sort of thing, and that's my story.
Look like a deranged man.
Yeah, it was pitiful. I can guarantee you it was pitiful. I mean, there were people looking at me like, who, what? Is this guy getting on the plane? They should allow him on the plane, but I got on the plane, so that's it. But we've got one more break to go to, and then we'll be done with this podcast. But we could talk all day long with our buddy Kenneth Chesson, KC from Williamston, North Carolina, my best bud and partner in crime, as some people have said, as we've had so many great times together out there in the field running cameras and hanging out with some of the top-end production companies in the outdoor industry. You're listening to the Carolina All Out Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast. We'll be right back. Hey, make sure you watch Carolina All Out on our YouTube channel and catch us on a live TV Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. And coming this summer, we'll be airing nationally on the Pursuit channel 4 times a week, spreading the good news to all who will listen about our great state and what she has to offer. At some point in your life, I'm betting you have probably thrown a piece of bait on a hook into one of our great state's 7 amazing sounds. If you have, you know how magical they are. Well, that magic is under threat and has been for a long time. That's where the North Carolina Marine and Estuary Foundation comes in, an organization dedicated to improving management practices, educating the public, and developing practical solutions. They want to see North Carolina become the premier fishing destination in the country. And I do too. Visit ncmeffoundation.org to learn more about this wonderful organization and how you can do your part in protecting the 7 jewels of North Carolina and a whole lot more.
We're back on the Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast. We've got Casey in the house, Kenneth Chesson, good friend, extremely good friend to the whole family friend, and a brother from another mother, a brother we've never had. We can put all those terms in there for it, and we've had a fantastic time. I can say we've had a great career. We've been talking about stories and things that's happened to us. Now, on occasion, we have a few good things that happened to us or some funny things that happened to us in there. And I can just remember us coming back from, it was a Canadian trip. I know it was back when Northwest Airlines was going on.
Oh, yeah.
That was back in the day. That was before Delta bought Northwest Airlines. And KC was, I don't know, you got a little sideways with somebody over there.
Well, we go to check in to Northwest, which we have flown a many a mile with up until that time. And still, they got bought out by Delta. But anyhow, you're over there. Seems like certain Canadians have problems with camouflage. And
yes, that's correct.
Chris checks in his camera gear, which is the same as mine, goes, waiting. You're actually waiting for me. And my gate agent tells me I have to check in my video equipment. I have to check it, and they're going to check it in with all the luggage. And I'm sitting there telling that guy, I was like, no, this is video equipment. And the camera I had at the time was probably about an $80,000 package, and it was in a soft case because and I told him, he was like, well, some of these planes you get on, there might not be overhead for it. I was like, no problem. I pull it out of the case, and I put it in the overhead, just the camera itself. So, we're good. I'll gate check it at the gate, no problem. Well, he was not having any of that. And, I'm pretty laid back most of the time, but this guy's trying to get me to check in an $80,000 package that it would get demolished by the time we got back to Raleigh. Well, not only was he giving me grief about that, but in the time they had canceled our flight along the way, so we were going to have to figure out how to we were going from Vancouver to Denver, Denver to Raleigh. I'll never forget. And we were arguing back and forth, and I see this guy and girl, they'd been hiking, their stuff wasn't camouflage, but their backpacks were way bigger than my camera case. And I was like, look, there's a guy and a girl, their stuff is way bigger than mine. Why are you trying to make it? And we were going back and forth. He's like, you're going to have to gate check. And I look at him, I say, sir, this camera package costs more than your house does. I am not.
I remember that.
I am not checking this thing in to get demolished. I'm not. And I said, I want to talk to your supervisor. And he looks at me like, well, sir, I can have you deported for being ugly like this and talking to me like this. I said, well, good. If you think you can get me to North Carolina faster, do it, because y'all canceled my first flight to Denver. And he was beside himself then. I mean, I had him all rattled. So he went and got his supervisor. And I remember you coming over saying, what's the problem over here? And then I'm like, this guy's trying to tell me that I can't bring the camera package with me. And once the supervisor showed up, she said, sir, I hear there's an issue. I was like, yes, ma'am. I was like, your gate agent tells me that I cannot take this on the plane with me. And I was like, you can check. I've got frequent flyer miles. I've flown all over the world with you guys and never had an issue until him.
Right. She's
like, well, what's he telling you? I was like, he's saying I have to check it, that I can't take it on the plane. It's too big. She's like, well, that's ridiculous. She said, come here. once she got there, everything smoothed out.
Smoothed
But
out, right.
it's like, not everybody likes camouflage, but he was not liking the fact that I told him the camera package cost more than his house. And then when he threatened to deport me, and I told him, if you think you can get me back home quicker, let's do it. Yeah, he was not happy with me.
Yeah, a few of those comments did not sit well with him. So, of course, I wasn't back there going,
Yeah.
I was just, it was all going to play out like it was. And we run into those situations sometimes. But those are the travels. Those are things that we run into. I mean, on and on from us getting pulled into customs. I don't know how many times I've done customs. Of course, us having to do the seems to be no protocol going into Canada sometimes about how you're supposed to get your work visas and that sort of thing. And so we're always running into those sort of issues. So, but I can honestly say the things that we've experienced and things we learned, I wouldn't trade them. They've been great and fantastic and have made us who we are today. And of course, along all those travels, we always wanted to do something for North Carolina because we met a ton of people from North Carolina on the roads. I mean, hunting all over the place and, just had no clue that guys were hunting like this all over the world. And, it's like, hey, we've got some great stuff going on here. Let's stay here and let's spend some money here in this state and enjoy the resources that we have here. So the future is bright for KC, and for myself and for Carolina all out. We really see that there's opportunity at every turn, and we want to take advantage of that. And so, with KC still doing some traveling, but KC's in real estate now.
Oh yeah,
and we beat that drum for KC for a long time, and now he's such a good guy and such a workable guy that I knew. His sales abilities is far outmatches mine, and I've been pretty successful at real estate. And so now KC is in that thing and dealing with a lot of property. So Lane, let's talk real quick about real estate and where you are right there in the future. So you are now a agent or a broker with?
Yep, land broker with American Forest Management. I don't mess with houses, and you and Janelle have pushed and pushed over the years. I wouldn't listen, but finally went and got licensed and working with American Forest Management now. And even though the economy is like it is, it's been an excellent move because it just seems like the deals are coming. And, I love working with people. I love a good challenge. It can be challenging. It can be rewarding. And finished off 2023 strong and got a big closing coming up in about 3 weeks. And got a call last week, guys looking to list 4 properties in down east, and got another closing. Actually, got 2 closings coming up pretty quick. So it's. I'm not traveling as much with the filming because I want to be there for my customers, but I do have guys that I work with that have take a few days off and go grab the camera. It's not an issue.
Yeah,
but
it's nice to have a little bit of a change.
Oh yeah. It's a stress relief and. You know the deal. You have that desire to get out there and keep on doing. And I like cameras. You work with the same one so many years, and you can pick it up and run it with your eyes closed. And it just, being a videographer, you and I and Josh, we look at something. When we look at something, we look at how it will look in a picture frame or on a TV screen. And that's how your mind, you just look at the world different. It's the creative part of your brain kicking in. And it just, I will always have that desire to get out there and grab a camera and to document. But, I've moved more to real estate, and it's been a very good move thanks to you and Janelle. I'm glad y'all kept pushing.
Well, I knew you would do well at it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, a lot of guys that we've worked with over the years have actually ended up in other states, gotten their broker's license.
Yeah, that seems to be a track for a lot of producers out there who are, getting out of the production thing because we can talk about that a little bit. That the production world is changing in the outdoors. It has been changing for some time. I say it all the time. That Garth Brooks song where he talks about competitions getting younger.
Yep.
Tougher broncs I've never rode. I've ever wrote, or whatever, however he says it. But the competition continues. It does get younger because we're getting older, and then those guys that are new guys that are coming into the field, and they have a different skill set, or at least the skill set they have is with different equipment that is up to date. They are running. We had one camera to run, a big camera, and it was a very technical camera.
Oh yeah.
And we had to know what we were doing there. But now these kids have got two GoPros that they've got put on. They've got probably a DSLR and potentially a main camera, or their main camera could be a DSLR. And so, they're running all this stuff at one time, remembering to turn this stuff on, and with the POV cameras and all that stuff. So there's a different look to the shows at times. And we were getting, I don't say aged out, because obviously you're still working. And if I wanted to go back, I could probably get some more work there. But my role has changed in the industry as being a producer. Now I'm more of an executive producer role and host, which puts me in front of the camera. And but old Josh and I talk quite a bit, and he grew up watching a lot of the stuff that you and I were producing back in the days, and so he's been influenced in that way, and so he tends to go back to a more classic style. Yeah. And I think you can't go wrong with that. I mean, there's a lot of different fancy things to do, but at the end of the day, this is what it's all about: getting that kill, that impact on video. Tack, sharp focus, and being able to establish your hunter in that moment, in that same sequence, in one shot. And that's where, I've drilled it into Josh. That's what we want. Establish me in the same shot with the animal, move to the animal, get the impact, back out to get my reaction. And that is completion. Yeah. That's what a goal is.
Well, I'll add one thing. Is I kind of blow folks' minds. They always ask, well, how many people were with your crew? And I just tell them, well, it was just a hunter and myself. And they're like, well, how in the world? You just have to do a lot of work. Folks don't realize how much work goes into it. Mm-hmm. And then the second way I blow their mind, of course, before we got in the industry, I was always watching these shows, but I got my own style. I don't even watch hunting and fishing shows anymore. Uh-huh. If it's not Carolina All Out, I'd be honest with you, I don't watch it. Right. I do not watch it. And it just seems to flabbergast people. But I don't. I have my own style. A lot of hunts I see them go down in person, and whatever the editors do with it, they do with it, because I don't edit shows, and I've got my style, and I've kept my style over the years, and folks like it, and that's what I've run with. I'm a one-man wrecking crew when it comes to a production crew, and there you go.
Yep, one-man gangs is the way we ran for a lot of times. Got to run our own audio and run our own reflectors and everything else that we're doing.
Light kits.
Interviews, yeah. Well, that is the future, as I said, is bright. Casey doing real estate, and by the way, just for anybody who's got an interest in possibly selling a piece of land or buying, and we're talking about large properties. I mean, Casey, what size will you work with?
Douglas, I've sold half an acre up to getting ready to close on 2,200 acres. Uh-huh. So, nothing's too small, nothing's too big.
Well, there you go. We're talking about if you're looking for a place to build a home, or you're looking for a recreational property that will cover your hunting and fishing pursuits, then Casey could be a very good option for you. I know he works very hard at it, going out across the internet looking for those kind of deals, specifically in North Carolina, because he's licensed in North Carolina. So if you want to make a phone call to him, if you've got something in mind, let him see if he can give you a hand with that. But Casey, Kenneth Chesson, Williamston, North Carolina, lifelong native of our great state, and my best friend. Outside of G, of course, G being number one.
I understand.
But Casey is my best friend. We have experienced a lot together, been through a lot together. Our families are connected in a way that other families, don't even understand. But we appreciate him and what he has meant to Carolina All Out, and we're just glad to have him. And Casey will be back in the studio, I'm sure, to talk about other things, because he's important to us, and we're glad that you got to know him. And we're going to be back talking more about Carolina All Out. And then, once we get into our regular podcast, we're going to have all sorts of guests that are going to be talking about specific things in the outdoors, whether it is how to get something done in the hunting and fishing realm, or possibly biologists that can tell us what's going on with
particular fisheries and particular herds of animals, flocks of animals, whatever it might be. And then, of course, lawmakers and others who are putting their fingerprints on this industry in our great state. It's all going to happen here on the Carolina All Out Fins, Fur, and Feathers podcast.
I'm your host, Chris Douglas, signing off, and we hope, as always, you make our state your next adventure.
When I was a kid growing up on the farm in little old Lee County, periodically and usually in the fall after selling tobacco or in the early spring when it was time to start breaking ground, my family would make a trip to what seemed like a faraway place called AgriSupply. AgriSupply had everything we needed to keep the farm running, but it's so much more. From repairing trailers to parts for discs and plows, to livestock feed, to lawn and garden, to all that beautiful cast iron cookware. That tradition is still going on, but AgriSupply is now in 9 locations across the Southeast. If you haven't been to an AgriSupply store before, just go. You don't have to have a farm or a fleet of trucks to go in. The public is welcome. I guarantee you'll find something you need. And if you don't need it, I bet you'll want it. AgriSupply, it's what's inside. At some point in your life, I'm betting you have probably thrown a piece of bait on a hook into one of our great state's 7 amazing sounds. If you have, you know how magical they are. Well, that magic is under threat and has been for a long time. That's where the North Carolina Marine and Estuary Foundation comes in, an organization dedicated to improving management practices, educating the public, and developing practical solutions. They want to see North Carolina become the premier fishing destination in the country. And I do too. Visit ncmeffoundation.org to learn more about this wonderful organization and how you can do your part in protecting the 7 jewels of North Carolina and a whole lot more.